It was a sunny afternoon. The sky was clear. Birds were flying slowly, and the wind was gentle. In a small, peaceful town, everyone was excited about a big wedding. The bride, Aisha, and the groom, David, were finally getting married. Their families had waited for this day for a long time. The wedding was set in David's backyard. The trees were decorated with lights and flowers. A white tent stood in the middle. Tables were covered in red and gold cloth. Everything looked beautiful. Aisha wore a white dress with golden designs. Her smile was soft, and her eyes were full of dreams. Her mother helped her fix her scarf. She said, "You look like a queen." David stood under the wedding tent, waiting. He wore a clean suit and a light pink tie, Aisha's favorite color. His friends cheered, "You're the luckiest man today." David laughed, but he looked nervous too. He kept checking his watch. "Where's Aisha?" he asked with a smile. Then came the music. Soft wedding music started to play. Everyone stood up. Aisha walked slowly toward David, holding her father's hand. People clapped. Some took pictures. David's eyes filled with tears when he saw her. She was more beautiful than ever. Just as they reached the front, David whispered, "You're perfect." Aisha smiled and said, "Let's do this." The priest stood between them. He began the wedding speech. "Today is a special day, a day of love and promise." But something felt strange. Across the street, an old man stood at his window. He was watching everything with cold eyes. His name was Mr. Clark. He had lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. Most people didn't talk to him. Some said he didn't like people who looked different. Mr. Clark picked up his phone and dialed a number. Double quotes. "Yes, I want to report something. There's a large gathering, loud music. I don't feel safe," he said. The officer on the phone asked, "Is there any danger?" Mr. Clark replied, "I saw people drinking, and there might be drugs. Also, I think someone's in trouble there." He ended the call and smiled to himself. Back at the wedding, Aisha and David were almost ready to say their vows. Aisha's father wiped his tears. David's mother smiled and held her husband's hand, but then loud sirens. Police cars. 3 of them. They came fast, stopping right outside the house. Everyone turned. Some guests got scared. The music stopped. The priest stepped back. Aisha looked at David, confused. "What's happening?" 4 police officers came in. They wore dark uniforms and serious faces. "Stop the ceremony," one of them shouted. People gasped. Aisha's mother stood in front of her daughter. "Why? What's wrong?" she asked. "This gathering may be illegal," the officer said. "We received a complaint. We need to search the area." David stepped forward. "This is my home." "What are you talking about? This is our wedding." The officer ignored him. "Everyone needs to step back." Aisha began to cry. She whispered, "Why are they doing this?" David tried to stay calm. "Please, we did nothing wrong. This is a wedding. Look around." One police officer looked uncomfortable. He asked, "Who made the complaint?" Another officer replied, "A neighbor, Mr. Clark." David laughed bitterly. Of course, it was him." The officer asked, "Do you know him?" David nodded. "He's hated me since I moved here. When he saw Aisha with me, he gave me dirty looks. He never liked us." Aisha's father joined in. "Please, check our papers. Everything is legal. This is a clean, peaceful event." But the officers didn't listen. They walked around, looking through bags, opening boxes, searching behind the food tables. Guests stood in silence. Some children started crying. The happiness was gone. The camera team turned off their cameras. The music man shut down the system. The lights were still on, but the joy was missing. Aisha stood in her wedding dress, her eyes filled with tears. Her hands were shaking. David stood by her side, angry but quiet. He whispered, "This is wrong. I won't let this happen." One guest, a young woman named Sarah, pulled out her phone. She started recording everything. She said quietly, "People need to see this." Meanwhile, Mr. Clark stood at his window, drinking tea. He smiled again. Back in the yard, the police found nothing wrong. No drugs, no loud fights, no dangerous activity. Just food, flowers, and family. The officer who felt unsure earlier said, "Sir, there's nothing here." His partner replied, "Let's still check the back area." The wedding priest looked at Aisha. He whispered, "I'm so sorry." Aisha didn't reply. She just looked down. David suddenly raised his voice. "This is our wedding. You are ruining it for nothing. Do you even realize what you're doing?" A police officer turned to him. "Calm down." "No," David replied. "I won't calm down. You walked in here like we are criminals. And for what? A lie." The guests started murmuring. Some nodded. Others started filming too. The police officers looked at each other. One said, "We need to contact the station." They stepped away. To make a call, Aisha walked toward her mother. "Is this what our love deserves?" she asked. Her mother hugged her and said, "This isn't your fault." David's father went to speak to the officers, trying to explain everything again. As the sun began to set, the wedding was paused. Nobody danced. Nobody smiled. The dream wedding had turned into a nightmare, but something had changed. Now people were watching, not just the guests, but soon, the whole world. Aisha and David held hands. They didn't speak, but their eyes said everything. "We won't give up." The sun was setting slowly behind the trees. The wedding that started with joy was now full of silence. Flowers were still fresh, the music system was ready, but the happiness had vanished. People stood in shock. No one could believe what just happened. The bride Aisha sat quietly on a chair. Her white dress had small red stains from her tears. Her mother sat beside her, holding her hand. Her eyes were also red from crying. David, the groom, was walking around the garden, trying to stay calm, but his heart was full of anger. "This is not right," he said again and again. "This is not fair." Inside one of the police cars, an officer was speaking to his boss on the phone. "Sir, we found nothing illegal here. No signs of drugs, no fighting, no trouble. It's just a wedding." The voice on the phone replied. The complaint sounded serious. "Stay there until we—" "No more." Outside, two officers were still looking around, asking questions. "Who is the owner of the house?" One officer asked. David stepped forward. "I am. Do you have an ID?" David gave him his ID and also showed the wedding permit, which he had received from the town office a month ago. "Everything is legal. We followed all the rules," he said. The officer looked at the paper. He said nothing, just walked away. In the corner, the young guest, Sarah, was still recording everything. On her phone, she whispered to her friend, "This is racism. They believed that old neighbor without even checking facts." Her friend nodded. "Just because we look different. Just because the bride is not white." Meanwhile, across the street, Mr. Clark was sitting in his armchair, sipping tea and watching through his window. He looked proud. He lived alone. His wife had died 5 years ago. He never liked changes in the neighborhood. When David moved in, Mr. Clark complained to the town office. He said the neighborhood was changing too fast. When Aisha started visiting David, Mr. Clark would watch them closely. He didn't like seeing people of different races together. "They don't belong here," he had once whispered to his friend. Earlier that day, when he saw the wedding guests, people in colorful clothes, speaking different languages, laughing, something inside him burned. He picked up the phone and lied. "There's loud music. I think I saw drugs. Something dangerous is happening," he told the police. He had no proof, but the police believed him. Back at the wedding, Aisha's father walked to the officers. He said politely, "Officer, I'm a teacher. My daughter is a kind, respectful girl. We are not criminals." One officer, the youngest one, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we're just doing our job." "Then do it right," the father replied softly. "Look around. This is a wedding, not a crime scene." A small boy, maybe 10 years old, walked up to one officer. "Sir," he said quietly, "that neighbor who called you, he always lies." The officer looked down. "What do you mean?" "He told my dad once that we were loud, but we weren't. He just doesn't like us," the boy said. The officer blinked. "What's your name?" "Adam," the boy replied. David heard this and walked closer. "He's right. Mr. Clark always finds a reason to complain. He doesn't want people like us here." The officer started thinking. Why did we believe him so quickly? He pulled out his phone and looked at Mr. Clark's name. He typed it into the system. A few reports appeared. Old complaints. All were similar against people who looked different, talked differently, or dressed differently. His face changed. "He's done this before." Another officer came and said, "There's no reason to stop this wedding. Let's leave." But the officer in charge said, "No, we stay until the station confirms." Inside the house, Aisha's younger sister was wiping her eyes. "Why are they doing this to us?" Aisha looked at her and said, "Some people are scared of love, that's why." David walked in and held her hand. "We're not stopping. This wedding will happen." Aisha smiled weakly. "Even if it's just us, I will marry you today." Outside, guests were still recording. Sarah's video had already been shared online. It was starting to get attention. People were commenting, "This is disgusting. Let them get married. Why did police stop a peaceful wedding? Racism still exists. This is proof." The video was spreading fast. Back at the station, the garden was quiet now. Most guests had stopped talking. Some had gone home. The wedding tent still stood tall, but it felt empty. Aisha and David sat under a tree, holding hands. Their dream wedding was ruined, not by rain, not by mistake, but by hate. Across the street, the man behind all the pain sat alone in his house. Mr. Clark. He watched from the window, arms crossed, eyes cold. But who was Mr. Clark really? The man in the window? Mr. Clark had lived in that neighborhood for more than 30 years. When he first moved there, things were quiet. Almost everyone looked like him, talked like him, believed the same things. Then the town began to change. New families moved in, people from different countries, cultures, and colors. Most neighbors welcomed the change, but Mr. Clark, DID in single quotes T, he started saying things like, "This neighborhood doesn't feel the same. They're ruining our traditions. Why don't they stay with their own people?" He never said these things loudly, just small comments, quiet complaints, but they showed how he really felt inside. He was not just angry, he was afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of being forgotten. Old wounds. Mr. Clark's life wasn't perfect. Years ago, his wife had passed away from illness. After that, he became bitter. His only son had married a woman from another culture, and Mr. Clark didn't approve. Because of that, His son stopped visiting. They hadn't spoken in 10 years. That pain lived deep inside Mr. Clark's heart. He never admitted it, but he blamed others for taking his family away. So when he saw David, a white man marrying Aisha, a Muslim woman, something inside him snapped. He wasn't just angry at them, he was angry at his own past. A pattern of hate. One of the younger officers, Officer Ryan, sat in the police car going through the system again. He typed Mr. Clark's name. Page after page of complaints showed up. All similar: complaint about loud music from an Indian wedding, complaint about funny smells from a Chinese family's dinner party, complaint about unsafe people when a black family moved in. In every case, no crime was found. But Mr. Clark kept calling. And somehow, he was always believed. Officer Ryan looked shocked. "Why didn't we see this before?" he whispered. He turned to his partner. "He's done this again and again, and we always listen to him." The police began to doubt. Back in the garden, David was talking to Aisha's father. "Did you know he's done this before?" David asked. Aisha's father nodded slowly. "He called the city office once when we had a birthday party. Said we were disturbing the peace." David's fists tightened. Why didn't anyone stop him? Because he hides behind fake words. He never says what he really feels. Aisha's little cousin Adam came running. Uncle David, what is it, Adam?" David asked. "He told my dad last year we didn't belong here, just because we wore different clothes." David looked at the police officers nearby. "They need to hear this." Facing the truth, Officer Ryan walked over to his team. "We need to talk," he said seriously. He showed them the records on his phone. "These are all from Mr. Clark. All lies. Always about people of color. Always false." One officer looked down. "We believed him again, and we ruined their wedding." Another said, "Maybe we didn't mean to, but we made a mistake." Ryan replied, "A huge mistake." They looked across the street at Mr. Clark's house. His curtains moved slightly. He was still watching. Ryan said, "He's not the victim. They are." Inside Mr. Clark's house, Mr. Clark sat in his chair, watching the lights outside. He turned on the TV. The local news was showing Sarah's video. It had gone viral. The headline read, "Wedding ruined by racist call. Police investigating." His hands shook a little. He changed the channel. But the story was everywhere now. People were leaving angry comments. "Shame on this man. Let love be love. Stop ruining innocent lives." Mr. Clark stood up and looked at an old photo on the wall. A picture of him, his wife, and his son. All smiling. All happy. He touched the frame gently. Then he sat back down. In silence, hope starts to rise back at the garden. Aisha stood up. She fixed her scarf, wiped her tears, and looked around. "I don't want to cry anymore," she said. David walked up beside her. "Then don't. Let's do something." She nodded. Sarah came running. "The video is going viral. People are supporting you." Hundreds of comments. David smiled a little. "Good. Let the world see," Aisha's father said. "You've already shown more strength than many people ever do." Officer Ryan approached slowly. "Miss Aisha." "David, I want to say something," he said. Everyone turned. "We were wrong. We believed a lie without proof, and because of that, we hurt you." Aisha didn't speak. David asked, "So what now?" Officer Ryan looked nervous. "We're reporting Mr. Clark. Officially, and we're going to make this right. But is sorry enough?" Aisha looked straight into the officer's eyes. "Will an apology fix my broken wedding?" Ryan stayed quiet. She continued, "Will it take away the fear, the shame, the tears in my mother's eyes?" David stepped in. "We're not asking for revenge, just justice." Ryan nodded, "And we will try to give it." The night air had turned cold. The wedding lights still shined, but the celebration had faded. The food was untouched. The music had stopped. But Aisha and David still stood side by side, tired, heartbroken, but strong. Across the lawn, Officer Ryan stood in silence. His face was tight. He held a small notepad in his hand. One by one, he spoke to guests, took their names, asked questions, and listened carefully. "We believed a man who lied," he told himself. "Now we must fix what we broke." Voices speak. Aisha's aunt, a quiet woman in her 50s, was one of the first to speak. "Mr. Clark stared at us every time we walked past his house," she said. "Even when we just went for a walk in the evening, he never said hello, only gave us looks." A young teenager added, "He once shouted at my little brother for riding his bike too close to the sidewalk, called him a street rat." More and more guests shared their stories. Officer Ryan wrote everything down. Aisha watched him from a distance. "Maybe this is the beginning of justice," she whispered. The video gains power back inside the house. Sarah and her friend were checking her phone. "Look," she shouted. "Over 200,000 views." David leaned in. He saw comments pouring in. "This breaks my heart. The couple deserves better. Someone must stop that neighbor. Where is the police chief?" One user tagged a local news channel. Another tagged the mayor. The story was spreading fast, faster than anyone expected. David looked at Aisha. The world is watching. Now Aisha gave a small, tired smile. "Let them." The police chief responds at the local police station. The chief of police, Mrs. Linda Harris, sat in her office, staring at a tablet. She watched the viral video carefully, pausing at Aisha's tears, David's anger, and the police walking through the wedding. She shook her head. "This is not how we serve the people," she said quietly. She picked up the phone and called. "Officer Ryan, start a formal investigation. Interview the couple, take witness statements, and I want a full background check on that neighbor, Mr. Clark." "Yes, ma'am," Ryan answered. Then she called the town's public relations. "Officer, I need to issue a statement by morning." Confronting the source back on the street, Ryan walked up to Mr. Clark's house. He knocked. The old man opened the door slowly. He didn't look proud anymore. He looked nervous. "Mr. Clark," Ryan said, voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." Mr. Clark raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "I reported something." "That's my right." Ryan didn't smile. "You reported a lie. A serious one." Mr. Clark crossed his arms. "They were loud. Strange food smells. And I saw someone passing a bottle, maybe alcohol." "It was a wedding," Ryan said. "Not a crime scene." "I didn't feel safe," Clark muttered. Double quotes. "No, Mr. Clark, you didn't feel comfortable," Ryan replied. The old man looked away. Ryan continued. "We have records of all your past complaints, many of them about non-white neighbors. This is a pattern." Mr. Clark didn't reply. "We're opening a case. If it's proven that your complaint was false and motivated by hate, you'll face legal consequences." Now, Mr. Clark looked truly afraid. Ryan handed him a notice. "We'll be in touch." Back at the wedding tent, word started to spread. "Mr. Clark is being investigated." Some guests cheered softly. Others clapped. Aisha sat down beside her mother. "Maybe we'll have justice after all." Her mother wiped her tears. "I hope so." David looked at the wedding tent, still decorated. "Should we take it all down?" he asked quietly. "No," Aisha said. "Leave it." "Why?" "Because we're not done yet," she replied. Officer Ryan returns. Ryan came back to the yard. He looked tired, but focused. "I want to speak to you both," he said to Aisha and David. They stood quietly as he continued. "We're officially launching a hate-based false report investigation. Mr. Clark has a long history of targeting people unfairly." "You're not alone," Aisha asked softly. "What happens now?" "We gather full evidence, witnesses, statements, and we bring it to court." David folded his arms. "That won't bring our wedding back." Ryan nodded. "You're right, it won't, but it might stop him from doing this again." A change in the crowd. Some guests had returned. They came back after seeing the news online. Neighbors who had never spoken much before now stood in quiet support. One elderly woman, Mrs. Nelson, walked up to Aisha. "I'm so sorry this happened to you," she said. Aisha smiled gently. "Thank you for being here." Another man handed David a bouquet. "It's not much, but we're with you." Little by little, the crowd began to feel warm again. The night was still cold, but hearts were softening. A small step forward. The night was silent, but the internet was loud. Sarah's video of the ruined wedding had now reached over 1 million views. People from around the world were sharing it. Strangers who had never met Aisha or David were crying for them, and standing with them. The video showed everything. The moment police stopped the ceremony, Aisha's tears, David's anger, and the silence that followed. In the comment section, people were writing, "This made me cry. Why is this still happening? In 2025, love is love. Racism has no place here. They deserve an apology and a second wedding." Some people even started raising money to help Aisha and David restart their wedding. News channels pick it up by morning. Local news stations had picked up the story, then came the national channels, then international ones. TV anchors were saying, "A peaceful wedding ruined by a racist lie." Officers believed a false complaint without evidence, but the community is fighting back. A clip of Aisha crying was played again and again. So was the moment David shouted, "We did nothing wrong." Every time someone watched, they felt the pain and the anger. The town wakes up. In the small town, people began to talk. Neighbors who had never spoken before were knocking on each other's doors. "Did you see the video?" "Yes. I feel so ashamed. That man, Mr. Clark, he's lived here for years. We never said anything before. Maybe now we should." Some of them brought flowers to David's house. Others made signs that said, "We support Aisha and David," and placed them on their lawns. Even a few of the guests who had run away in fear the day before came back to say sorry. David's phone rings nonstop. David hadn't slept all night. His phone kept ringing. Calls from journalists, messages from strangers. A woman from New York wrote, "Your story made me cry. I married outside my culture too. Stay strong." A man from Pakistan sent a message. "My daughter showed me your video. I wish you happiness. Don't let hate win." Even a famous singer tweeted, "I stand with Aisha and David. Let's help them have the wedding they dreamed of." David showed the message to Aisha, her eyes filled with tears. Again, this time, happy ones. Mr. Clark faces the fire inside his house. Mr. Clark sat in the dark. His TV was off. His phone had been ringing, but he didn't answer. He looked out his window and saw something strange. People were standing outside his house, with signs, "Shame on hate. You can't stop love. Stop weaponizing lies." The police had placed tape on his mailbox. A small paper was posted on his door, "Under investigation for false reporting and hate complaint." He closed the curtains slowly and sat back down. The room felt colder than ever. He picked up a photo of his late wife. "You would have hated this," he whispered, for the first time in years. He felt regret, but it was too late. Aisha speaks out later that day. Aisha stood in front of a camera. She didn't wear makeup. Her hair was tied simply. She looked tired but strong. "I'm not angry," she said. "I'm hurt, deeply hurt." She paused, then continued, "But I'm also proud, because I saw how many people stood with us, people we don't even know." Her voice shook as she added, "We didn't just want a wedding, we wanted a beginning filled with love. And now, we want to share that love with the world." The video reached 5 million views in 2 days. Support comes from everywhere. A local bakery offered to make a free wedding cake. A florist promised fresh flowers. A nearby park offered their space for a second wedding, free of charge. A lawyer offered to represent them if they chose to take legal action. People also started a crowdfunding page titled, "Give Aisha and David the wedding they deserved." Within hours, it reached $15,000. Aisha was shocked. "I never asked for this." David held her hand. "You didn't ask, but people wanted to give." Police chief holds a press conference standing in front of reporters. Chief Linda Harris spoke clearly. "We made a mistake, a big one. We believed a false complaint without proof. We entered a private ceremony and caused emotional harm." A reporter asked, "Will the officers be punished?" She answered, "The officers are being reviewed. Mr. Clark is under legal investigation." Another reporter asked, "What message do you want to send?" Chief Harris looked into the cameras and said, "We don't just protect buildings and streets, we protect people's rights. And yesterday, we failed, but we are working to make it right." David makes a decision that night. David sat with Aisha in the garden, the same garden where the wedding was stopped. "I don't care about a big wedding anymore," he said. "I care about you, about our love." Aisha nodded. "Still, I want to wear my dress again." He laughed. "Then you will." Aisha smiled and said, "Let's do it again, but this time on our terms." 3 days had passed since the wedding was stopped, but Aisha and David's story was everywhere. On the news, in newspapers, on social media. Their faces had become symbols of love, hurt by hate, and truth rising after injustice. The world was watching. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. And finally, the police returned. The officers returned. It was late afternoon. The sun was golden, the wind calm. David was fixing chairs in the backyard. Aisha was inside, looking at her wedding dress. Still clean, still beautiful, still waiting. Suddenly, a knock at the gate. Officer Ryan stood there, along with 2 other officers. He looked serious, but respectful. David opened the gate slowly. "You're back?" "Yes," Ryan said. "We came to say something, not as police officers, but as people." Aisha came outside and stood beside David. She didn't smile. Her eyes were calm but firm. Ryan took a deep breath. "We are here to say we're sorry." The apology, he continued. "We didn't do our job right. We believed a lie, and we hurt 2 innocent people. We walked into your celebration, and it turned it into something ugly. For that, we are truly sorry." The other 2 officers nodded. One said, "It has kept us awake at night." There was silence. Aisha looked down. Then she asked softly, "Is sorry enough?" Ryan replied, "No, it's not. That's why we've started an official report on Mr. Clark. He will face legal action for filing a false and hateful complaint." Justice begins that evening. News broke across town. Mr. Clark charged for false report and hate-based harassment. He was given a legal notice. A hearing was announced. David saw the news on his phone. He showed it to Aisha. She stared at it for a few seconds. "He'll stand in court," David said. Aisha didn't smile. She said, "Good, but it still doesn't undo what he did." Public reaction. Many people supported the decision. Online, people wrote, "Finally, some justice. He caused pain and shame. Now he must face it too. Let love win, and let hate pay the price." But some people had mixed feelings. One comment read, "He's an old man. Maybe he didn't know better." Another said, "Is punishment enough if he never truly changes?" Aisha read those comments and said, "That's the real question." A talk with the chief. A few days later, Chief Linda Harris came to visit them herself. She sat in their living room, took off her hat, and spoke softly. "I've worked in this town for 20 years, she said, "and I've never been more ashamed than I was that night." Aisha asked, "So why did it happen?" The chief looked at her. "Because sometimes, people in power stop asking questions. We believed someone because of his skin, his age, his history. We didn't look at the truth. We only saw what we expected to see." She paused. "Can I ask, what do you want from us now?" David looked at Aisha. She nodded at him. He said, "We don't want money. We don't want revenge. We want change." Aisha added, "Train your officers. Teach them not to trust hate. Teach them to look deeper. Don't let this happen to another couple." Chief Harris nodded. "You have my word." Mr. Clark alone, again inside his house. Mr. Clark sat at the kitchen table. The TV showed his own face on the news, a mugshot, a list of charges. He looked at a letter in his hand. It was from his son, the one he hadn't seen in 10 years. The letter read, "Dad, I saw what you did, and I'm disappointed. I married someone from another culture too. You never supported me. Maybe now you'll understand why I left." Mr. Clark's hands shook. He walked slowly to the window. Outside he saw neighbors helping David set up a second wedding. They were laughing, smiling, working together. He stood there in silence, watching a world he no longer understood. The strength of forgiveness. That evening, Aisha and David sat under a small light. They had no music, no big crowd, no food yet, but the air felt lighter. David said, "Do you think he feels sorry?" Aisha replied, "Maybe, but maybe feeling sorry isn't enough. Maybe it's about changing too." David asked, "Will you ever forgive him?" Aisha looked at the stars. "Maybe someday, but not today." The wedding was over, not the first one, the second one, the real one, the one that survived hate, fear, and pain, and still happened anyway. Aisha and David were finally married. There was no drama, no police cars, no shouting, just smiles, laughter, peace. But the story wasn't over because this wasn't just about two people. It had become a message to the world. Life after the wedding. A few days later, Aisha and David sat on a bench in the park. No cameras, no lights, just each other. "I still think about that day," Aisha said quietly. David nodded. "So do I. Not the pain," she added, "but how we rose after it." David smiled. "We didn't rise alone." She looked at him. "We never would have." Around them, people walked by. Some waved, some smiled. A woman stopped and said, "Your story gave me courage. I left a toxic relationship after watching you stand so strong." A man added, "My daughter showed me your video. I cried. You gave me hope for this world." Aisha and David held hands. They didn't say much. They didn't have to. The world moves forward. The video that once went viral had now become a symbol. In schools, teachers played it in class to talk about kindness. In offices, people used it to teach about bias and justice. Even some police departments began new training sessions to help officers understand what happened and how not to repeat it. The wedding had started in one backyard, but its message had traveled the globe. Mr. Clark's silence and the other side of the street. Mr. Clark still lived alone. He no longer opened his curtains much, but sometimes people saw him sitting by the window, just looking. One afternoon, the letter was delivered to his house. That it had no name on it, just a few words written in soft handwriting. "We forgive, but we don't forget. We hope you choose better next time." No anger, no hate, just a quiet reminder. Change is always possible, but only if you want it.